Hello, welcome to my channel and my garage. I'm Alex, and today I'll be continuing work on my Volkswagen Golf R in order to get it ready for track use. So if you're joining from the last video, welcome back. In that video, I started out by repairing my valve cover gasket. This was something I was putting off for quite a while just because I kind of dreaded the process. However, it did give me a chance to do a bit of a deep dive on the engine, explore it internally, and I actually had a pretty fun time doing that project. Besides that, I did perform some fluid changes, including a DSG service on the transmission. Now things have run a bit long and I do need to get all of the repairs done, so in this video I'll be doing just that. I'll be working at the rear of the car to get the differential situated as well as making sure that the all-wheel drive coupling is all good to go and the all-wheel drive system is working. However, before that, I think what I'll do is start by servicing the brake system, making sure that's good to go, because I want to be confident in this car's stopping abilities. So let's go ahead and get this started. And real quick, for those of you who are wondering about the spark plugs and the PCV, which I had mentioned in the previous video, I won't be able to cover it in this video just because I ran short on time. I'm going to have to save that for a follow-up video after I finish up at the racetrack. All right, so let's start things off with a little brake work by doing a brake service on the front and rear of the Golf. Right now we're looking at the front brakes. This is a big brake kit from Racing Line. This kit is a little older and it came with the car. However, I can give you some details on it. This is a 14-inch rotor or 360 mil. This is not the 355 mil newer kit. The calipers are 6-piston monoblock. As you can see there, there's a good amount of pad on these because I did change these brakes not too long ago. Primarily what I want to do is remove the rotors in order to disassemble them and replace the outer discs. I'll also be replacing the hardware. Now these brakes were actually slotted, however all the slotting has worn off at this point. That's just how much wear they have. They're still stopping good and there's a decent amount of material, however when it gets to that point I think it's about time to change them. And this will be my second time servicing these rotors. Alright, now coming to the back. A lot less work needed back here because these brakes were also serviced recently. However, nothing here to replace. I'm just going to inspect this over, clean it up, maybe apply a little lubricant to the pads, and that should be all we need back here. And these brakes here are also somewhat Racing Line, not full because the caliper is factory. However, these pads are from Racing Line as well as this 2-piece rotor, which luckily does not need any servicing because I believe this unit has been discontinued. Now, my least favorite part about these brakes is the fact that you cannot remove the brake pads from the top of the caliper. You do have to remove the entire caliper in order to access them. However, in this case, it's not an issue because the caliper has to come off regardless in order to let me take that disc off of there. So all I need to do is take off these 2 large Allen bolts that are in here, and then take that off, place that aside supported, and then just the Torx bit in the center, and then this will be coming loose, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to get these rotors over to the bench, and then I'll be back. Okay, I've got my rotors on the bench, and then all I really have to do is go ahead and separate these. This is a 2-piece disc, so there's the outer section, which there's a new one there, the new one's there, and you have the inner section, which is the hub, and they're just held together with hardware, in my case like this, a bolt and nut on the back. There is also some washers here, but I believe these are a exact fit. This isn't just any washer. So as you can see, it looks like they're using these to locate the rotor to the hub, along with these blocks that get wedged underneath. That's the way the two-piece design is configured. And these are directional, so there is a left and a right, and that is dictated by the way that the vanes face inside of the rotor. So it's not about the actual lines on the surface, it's about the way the vanes are internally. This is my brand new rotors, but looks like they came with rust brand new. So I'm going to try to take some Scotch-Brite to that, see if I can clean that up. It does drag a little bit, so I'd rather not have that. And also, as you can see this, that's from the machining. I got a set like this last time, and it had the same thing going on. I remember they were pretty noisy as I was running them in. I don't know if this is intentional, if this is normal, and that they use this to seat the pads, or this is just poor machining. Not sure, but either way, the brakes work. So now I'll go get these disassembled, broken down. I like to take the hubs after that and just give them a wash off, clean them up as best as I can. Try to keep them looking nice. So they're pretty dirty right now. You know, a little story about me in this car. The second thing I ever did on it was these brakes. That's because the first thing I ever did on it was an oil change, which I did as soon as I brought the car home. As soon as I got the oil, I put it right in. Had no idea what the dealer that sold it to me may have used. They overfilled the car a little bit, so I had no confidence in them. Just immediately changed it right out. But soon after that, I did find that one of the pads was going metal to metal, so I had to scramble to go ahead and replace those, which really was a scramble because finding parts for this kit is pretty hard. I don't even know the part number of the entire kit. All I had was a part number that is visible right there on the disc itself, and had to work from that, basically measuring the pads and figuring out based on those what possible matches were until I actually found the replacement parts. So this kit's been discontinued from what I can tell, and I'm not sure how long there's going to be parts available, so it's possible that this kit may not last on this car for too long. But for right now, I'm going to use this video as a little notepad to leave a note for myself about these parts here, so that for next time when I need to get replacements, I know what to get. So I'm just going to measure out this hardware right here and then get to cleaning and assembling this new stuff. So I'm going to start with the bolt. This is an M6 by 1.0 thread, and it looks like the length is 30 millimeters. The threaded section that I have on here is 20 millimeters. The nut I don't need specs on because it's also M6 by 1.0, but this is a crush type locking nut. Let's do the washers next. So this is the outer washer. It's slightly smaller than the inner, and that diameter is 16 millimeters. The thickness is just over 2 millimeters. Let's call it 2 millimeters with dirt on it. Now let's check the inner washer. I guess about 18 millimeters. Actually, this one is not critical because this one is not a exact fit, so it doesn't really matter. About 18 millimeters, 17 3/4, thereabouts. I'm going to take a measurement on this, but pretty much given up on these. For one, I have no idea what these are called, and two, no matter what I did, I could not find a replacement, but I don't know, maybe I'll try again in the future. So let's check the height, 16.8. Okay, sounds good. The diameter of the round part, 9.3 millimeters. The width looks like 11.15, and then turned 90 degrees, 11.2. I'm guessing this is measuring out bigger just because of all the brake dust on here, because this is the part that was covered up. At this point, the front brakes are all set mechanically. I have the discs reassembled. Without any torque specifications to refer to, I used reference charts in order to get some estimated torque values for the hardware on the disc. Since the bolt is M6 and grade 8.8, the maximum torque value I found was 11.8 Newton meters. So I went a little bit under that at 100 inch-pounds, which is right about 11.2 Newton meters. I also did some testing with some spare hardware, over torquing it and torquing it until it would yield and break completely, and I'm pretty happy with this number. I don't foresee it being an issue. And then my caliper, I went and tightened that down to 115 foot-pounds. Those bolts were grade 10.9, however they do thread into some sort of an aluminum bracket, so I didn't want to push it too hard, just got it to where it's snug for those M14 bolts. As for the rear brakes, I don't think anything is needed. I've looked these over and everything looks great on them. The rotors are looking really nice, not much wear on them at all, and the pads still look like brand new. So I would say these are good to go. At this point, the only thing left to do for the brakes is to change that fluid. However, I'm going to wait until the end to do this because I have something much more interesting to move on to.
So I mentioned the all-wheel drive system, and that's because currently it's not working. Also, I made mention of clutches, because the system uses clutches to send torque to the rear wheels. I only just recently got a diagnostic system allowing me to test the all-wheel drive system on this vehicle. So up to now, I was basically just doing my best guess in order to try to isolate the failure. The way I figured it, it was either due to the pump failing or the clutches failing. And I knew if it was one of those, there could be a chance that it had affected the other, meaning that a pump going weak could potentially wear out the clutches, or the clutches wearing out, sending material through the pump and causing internal damage. Without codes or warning indicators, I figured the chances of an electronic failure were less likely. So I went ahead and ordered upgraded clutches as well as a new pump. So in this next part, I'll do a brief overview of how the system functions and then start the work.
Okay, now we're at the back of the vehicle underneath, so I can show you the rear differential and four-wheel drive coupling. So right here is the differential unit, and in the front of it right here, the Haldex system is incorporated. You can see the drive shaft connecting here. Inside there's a clutch pack, which when applied force to, clamps together and sends torque from the drive shaft to the differential, allowing it to go out to the wheels. When this system is off, the vehicle is effectively in front wheel drive. And with it broken, it is also in front wheel drive. One thing I want to point out here is it's possible that the failure I described is actually not what happened. So there is a third possibility that the electronic control system for this has failed. This is the module that controls it. So if something happened to this, or the way it integrates into the vehicle, the system would also not function. For now, I'm going to work on removing this unit. What I'll need to do is remove this exhaust, probably from here, most of the way to the front, in order to give me room to work on the drive shaft. Then I'll disconnect the drive shaft. At that point, I can unbolt the Haldex unit and remove it out towards the front. During this process, the fluid will of course be changed since it will all leak out of there. Since I'm already back here, I'm also going to change the differential gear oil. At this point, I'm almost ready to begin disassembling the diff and removing the Haldex unit. So to get to this point, I had removed the exhaust system from the muffler all the way up to the downpipe. I had to disconnect the drive shaft at the differential and then come back through here. I had to remove both of the front splash shields, which gave me access to the middle heat shield that was blocking the drive shaft bearing, which I then unbolted. To get the drive shaft down and out of the way, I did have to disassemble this coupler here, this Guibo coupler slash damper. This allowed it to clear the end of the pinion, and I was able to bring it down. Next, what I'm going to do is drain the Haldex fluid, disconnect the pump, I'm going to loosen this bolt. If I remember correctly, this is part of what holds the Haldex unit together internally. That's why I want to loosen it right now while I can get some leverage on it. After that, it looks like all I will need to do is remove these 4 bolts holding the unit in, and then I should be able to slide this outward and take it out. Okay, I've got the Haldex unit out and on the bench. Both of the fluids are drained, so this right here is the diff, as well as the Haldex. Both of these were unremarkable, so they look normal. I also have the Haldex controller removed, just to check it out. All of the pins look good. I'm going to set that aside. I left the pump installed, so I'm going to take that out right now, look that over. Now, as far as the actual clutch pack, that's inside here, inside of this drum. So I'll be disassembling this in order to get to that, which is going to look something like this. These are my new clutches from JDY. This is the street kit. So I think this has 1 disc more than what factory is, and then there is also a race version of this, which I think has another additional friction disc. So once I get this apart, I'll look things over, and then hopefully we can move to installing the new clutches. For now, what I'm going to do is start soaking these in Haldex fluid. I believe the instructions recommend doing that for at least 30 minutes. All right, I just removed the pump. Everything looks normal. This is the screen, the inlet screen for the pump. I don't see anything there. Not a whole lot of debris or anything. So this is how it was last time when I did the service. There really wasn't anything noticeable. However, in there, I do see this leaking out with the fluid. This is kind of gritty stuff, so that may be an indication of something. And then I forgot to mention, I have my new pump right here ready to go. I think all I need to do now is just loosen this nut, take it off, and then I should be able to separate the drum from the rest of the housing. All right, I've got the unit disassembled now. First, I went in and checked this bearing. This is good to go. I also noticed there's a bearing on the bottom. So this piece right here, that's a bearing unit. So this one is also looking good. So it's good to go. Now, underneath this this thick top disc is the entire clutch set that we had looked at. The way that these are retained is by a stake in the metal. So if you look right there on the drum in 3 places, it's just basically been struck with a tool in order to bend that inward and keep these clutches from coming out. So all I have to do is straighten those out, and then I can start assembling this unit by taking the clutches up. I'm also going to review the instructions at this point to make sure I don't miss anything. I see that this came with this tool. I don't remember what this is supposed to do. It might be for checking this for when I reassemble. I don't know. We'll see. Also, another thing I'm noticing is the visible part of the clutch there. It looks just like the clutches that I have here on the bench. So I don't know, maybe it's already been upgraded. Okay, here's what I'm seeing. So I've looked through, I've lifted off the entire stack of clutch of frictions and steels and looked through all these, and they actually look normal. Like they have minimal wear on them. All of them look great. Like they basically look exactly like the new ones, and it was the entire way, all the way through. So this is how the discs look. I know it looks like there's some lines on there, but it actually is very minimally worn. Like this is just bare minimum wear. So I'm actually going to say that this entire clutch pack is good. The only difference being that there are 13 frictions here, and in this kit here I have 14. So by installing the new kit, it will have more clamping pressure, or at least more surface area to clamp on with that additional clutch. But after seeing this, this clearly is not the issue here. So I'm hoping that it was just this pump right here because if it's not, I'm still not going to have all-wheel drive for this event. Okay, now I'm going to start loading up these new clutches and assembling. I may not get everything on video because I am rushing trying to get this done. I'm on a bit of a time crunch here and about 1 day behind where I would like to be, so I really got to make good time on this. Once this is all set, I still need to drive the vehicle for 300 miles, which is the recommended interval. It's just 300 miles of normal driving. So I got to get that underway in the next day and a half in order to be able to make this event. And that doesn't even include testing out the car beforehand and making sure everything's good or any other revisions.
Wow. Have a look at this. This is with the entire set loaded in. I mean, that's pulling up here and pressing these down. To do the race kit, I mean, it would just barely fit, it seems like. So this is a tight fit with the street kit. Still need to put in the last disc, the end piece. The steels don't grab on the inside, they only grab on the outside, whereas the frictions grab on the inside. So no worries there. One thing I did notice is that the steels going in, the new ones, are much tighter fit around here. I'm not sure if that's because they are machined that way or just because that's what happens after they break in. They get a little worn on the edges, but the stock ones don't seem very heavily worn. So I'm guessing they added a little bit of material there to make it extra tight, which is cool. So now I just need to stake these tabs into place. Hitting these hard, I'm sure, could just break them right off, especially seeing as how they've already been bent in once, and now I've bent them outward and now back inward. All right, that's all set. That right there is about how far they get pushed out. Not very far, just a little bit out past the drum. Just enough to retain the clutch pack. I didn't get it on video. When setting this on, it seemed like there was a gap here. This slid apart real easy, but it just gets a little offset. So I just had to kind of work it down like that, and that settled it back into place. Didn't really have to hit it or force it other than just by hand. So now I can install this piece here. Just gonna line that up with my mark where it was originally. And then the spec on this is 250 Newton meters, which I think converts to 184 pound-feet, which I think actually this was under torque because when I went to take this off with my impact gun, it just zipped off right away. So I don't know why this was touched before, but I did see marks, not these marks, these are mine, but I did see marks on some of the bolts underneath. So it's possible there was some kind of work done on this in the past.
By the way, no mention to this little tool in the instructions from what I saw. I'm gonna set that aside. I've already zipped this nut on. What I need to do now is find some way to hold this, and then I'll begin torquing that to 184 foot-pounds. Actually, I might only have a torque wrench that goes up to 150, so I may just leave it at 150 or just give it a little bit extra. At this point, the car is completely reassembled minus the wheels. The last thing I have to do is get on VCDS, run the car, see if the all-wheel drive system is functioning, try to actuate the pump, and then finally set the fluid level in the Haldex unit. Before I do that, I just want to take care of two things. One is I got my timing covered inspection plug, so I'll be putting that in, as well as now is the time that I'm going to do my brake fluid flush. What I'm going to do is begin by evacuating the brake master cylinder reservoir, and then move on to each wheel, pulling fluid directly from the calipers. I'll be using this fluid extraction pump in order to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and do those things now.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, things are looking good. Everything's back in one piece. The car's still up in the air. I was putting it in gear and letting it run. Right away, already seeing all four wheels spinning, which is a good sign. So now I'm over on VCDS. I've already cycled the pump. About to do that again. And I did hear it come on. So pump motor, go. So I think now what I'm going to do is maybe reset the adaptation and then get this thing up to temperature and then just set that fluid level, make sure it's good, and then I believe at that point this car's ready to start driving. It's going to have to go through basically a running end cycle, which is 300 miles of just regular driving. So what I'm going to do is go out and try to rack up as much of this as I can today. It's already 4 p.m. as of right now, so and extend this into tomorrow as needed. But I want to get through that as fast as possible because obviously I want to test the car, see how it's running by pushing on it. I want to see that everything is good to go or whatever I need to address before going to the track. Here's the update so far. So I got the car out of the garage, went out, took it for a drive. So far, I'm still short of my 300 miles that I need for the break-in of the clutches, but I did get 120 miles in. The car's running good. I haven't noticed any issues. The only thing is that I have an exhaust rattle now. So I have the car in the garage again right now, and I'm going to get underneath to realign the exhaust pipe and try to get rid of that. At the same time, what I'm going to do is check the car over once again, really just looking for any fluid leaks and anything else that stands out, just double checking myself. Okay, here we are under the car. I've already found the exhaust leak. It was pretty obvious. Initially, I suspected that what I was having is contact with a heat shield, but it looks like this joining pipe here is actually not tight enough right there. Even though these are snugged up, it almost looks like it slid apart here as it was settling in. So, but basically I just need to tighten this because what it's doing is rattling against itself. So, as you can see, it's totally loose right there and it's just rattling around in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that tightened up. As far as leaks, I don't see anything in the back so far. I just checked everything over up front and everything is still looking good to go. So I'm going to go get some more miles on it. Okay, the car's now all set. I'm going to go get it back on the road, get those additional miles, and as long as nothing else happens, I think it's going to do it for this video.
And come back, join me in the next one where I do my final prep the night before hitting the track. I'll be doing some cleanup on the car as well as setting up my camera and GPS equipment with a little bit of wiring. If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you for watching and please consider subscribing. I will see you in the next one.